Hello there. My name is Wilbert T. Sass, and I live in Omaha, Nebraska, at what I affectionately call the Palace. Now, the reason I'm looking down there to the right is because the Palace dog is down there, and he wants some attention. I just gave him a snack, and he wants some attention. So I'm looking at him, and that seems to have settled him down a little bit. And he's looking at me curiously, wondering who I'm talking to, because he don't see nobody in the room but him. Now, listen, you probably saw the introduction tag for the reason of this video, and in case you didn't, it is uh, Customer Division USA. Now that's a .com that I've registered, and I'd like to take just a few minutes to explain that because many people are going to be curious about what in the world that means by Customer Division USA, and it's a phenomenon that has occurred, and it has taken 70 years to do it for the occurrence to be a reality in our economic life in the United States of America. Now, I want to stress at the outset that customer division in USA has been a phenomenon that is an economic design by certain elements of our economic entities that function within our economic system we use in the United States, which for the most part is capitalism, uh, free enterprise. Which means as long as basically what it means is as long as you don't break any rules, laws, you're freed up, and if you register your businesses according to state and federal requirements and even local requirements, and agree to pay taxes and do pay taxes, as long as you meet all those requirements, you're free to operate a business in the United States according to your interests and pursuit of your own benefits from operating the business and provide employment to people in your business and manage your business according to your capabilities and so on and so forth. So we have many, many, many businesses, obviously, in the United States. What most people don't really stop and think too much about, which is understandable, it is the businesses in the United States basically amount to two categories. There's the big businesses, everybody knows about them. And then there's the small independent businesses. Okay. Now, most most towns and cities in the United States have these small independent business operators. And now, when I say small, that can mean anywhere from, a high to a low. Obviously, the low end, you have to do so much business as an independent business owner just to stay in business. Okay. And then on the other side, you've got certain small businesses who are in the minority, and I stress minority, of independent businesses that are been around long enough, their owners are experienced enough, and they're capable to have built a business that is higher than most of the other independent small businesses in the cities or towns that they operate. And generally, for the most part, this happens because of the length of time they've been in business. The longer you're in business, And if you're making a profit, and if you are, and you're reinvesting in your business, then your business is growing, right? That makes sense, right? Okay, so obviously then the longer you've been in business, if you've been making a profit and been reinvesting, you're on a growing plane. Whether it's a rocket ship or whether it's a lower flat plane, but you're doing more businesses in your category of business than the rest of the small businesses in your community in that category. Now, I want to stress the word category, because when you think of what we used to have a directory that was sent out to us by the communications companies to help us find businesses in a city or town. They were categorized so that we could, let's say we were looking for a professional service company, and there are several categories of those. You know, the kind that fix the pipes in your house, and the kind that fix the wiring in your house, and the kind that fix the units that heat and cool your homes. Those categories are listed accordingly to the kind of business that they are. So if you wanted one of the categories that did wiring in homes, then you would look under that category, and then that directory would list all the different categories that do wiring and fix wiring in electrical situations, and install electrical parts in a home or in a commercial situation. And the thing of it is, if you remember those times, like today, we have the search engines that when you put in there that you want to see what wiring companies are available, and it's all according to where you live. That the companies that I'm going to talk about in a minute categorize everything basically so that they can sell advertising, what is known as SEO, search engine optimization services and advertising. So today, when you, as a homeowner, they've got you pegged in as where you live, what zip code you live in. So when you type in a certain kind of a business situation that you're in search of, what they will do is return to you what they want you to know and see uh, of the category that you've searched. Not necessarily the best one, but according to how much money the company that ends up showing you the top one on the page. Because the more money that these companies spend to be presented on a categorical search according to your location, the more money companies spend, the more likely they will end up on the first return, and it will say the business name and so forth and so on. And then you'll scroll down, and there'll be another one, and then that company is maybe spent almost as much, but they still didn't get the first spot. They just got the second spot. So you scroll down a little further and you get the third spot, and so on and so forth. Now, when you get down to these companies that do this today, now a little bit ago, a minute or two ago, I was talking about the communication companies of yesteryear that sold advertising to businesses, in addition to listing line items of companies that are in that category. So when you went to that page of that category that you were looking for, you have to be a little older in order to remember this. None of the young people would even know anything I'm talking about. Everybody had one of those books in their house. And when they wanted to know something, that's where they went to find out. We didn't have the information age like we do today. You see, I'm 80 years old, so I can remember a lot of these things that most people or many people can't. I would say almost, I would say most today because of my age. That puts me in a position to be able to remember economic occurrences that were prevalent in the 60s, in the 50s, because I was old enough then and already in the economic income producing realm, paying taxes. I started out as a greeting card salesperson at 8 years old. My grandmother got out of the Cub Scout magazine an advertisement that said, sell our boxed colored greeting cards, assorted greeting cards. And you'd send in for them, and they would send you a case of 24 boxes of 12 cards or 24 cards, I can't remember which, in a box. And there were 24 of those boxes in this case. And the greeting cards inside were they had an envelope, and they were colored, and they were assorted in each box. So then what you would do is you take a box of those greeting cards out in your neighborhood, and you got to remember this is 1948 when I'm doing this in my neighborhood in Norfolk, Nebraska, knocking on doors, and every door, virtually every housewife was home because the women didn't work in those days. Most women didn't work in those days. They were housewives. They were home, taking care of the home, taking care of the children. They were there when the children left for school, and they were there. There was no buses. And most people lived, the schools were distributed in a way that the kids could walk to school. Okay. It's not like that today. Well, we got to have the busing. We got to have that cost because you can't have schools that close to where everybody lives. There's too many people nowadays. I mean, when you go back and look at the population figures of 1948, it's so and so. But when you look at them today, it's a lot more people. We have grown at a rate of generally from 2 million to 4 million, 5 million, depending on the decade that you look at, every year with live births, registered live births. And if you start thinking in terms of that happening, and you go back and you can find the census data on that per year going back to 1910, which I have done. And it's listed by state, and it's listed according to month of which number of people were live births were occurring in that month, in that year, in that state, okay, in that town. I mean, it's all there for you. Okay, so now back to the business of customer division. Now, so that is the way that people were served by business way, way, way back until the information age began to take a hold of this situation. Let's say in the late 70s and early 80s, when the computer came into existence. Now, I know a little bit of something about computers and used in business because I was running a business that was operating in 10 states as a distributor for a machine that was built in the United States, and it was imported through my company that I worked in. And then I took those machines and I set up dealers in 10 states, in the Corn Belt states, out of where I lived at the time in Oakland, Nebraska. Okay. And I traveled those 10 states and servicing and developing and helping those. And I set up what is commonly known as farmer dealers at that, because it was a farm implement machine. And so The idea of my experience is plainly understood when you think in terms of the fact that I was at my age of around 35 years old when I was doing that, but I had just said I started selling greeting cards when I was age 8. And then after that, when I was in school, I sold stainless steel cookware and china and cutlery to young working girls who I convinced to start out early and get this in their what they call a hope chest. So they had these things available to start in as soon as they got married, they had the fixings to go ahead and set up and so on. So I did that through high school. And then right after I got out of high school, I went with my wife. I was married at the time. I married when I was still in high school to a lady that was 5 years older than I was. I was 17 and she was 22. And so I moved us to Omaha because I figured that I could have better opportunities with my sales experience that I had generated from age 8 until age at the time 19 years old when I graduated Norfolk Senior High School. And I went to employment agencies. I didn't know any better. And the employment agency sent me to see the regional manager for Royal McBee Corporation, which is no longer, I don't think it's Royal McBee anymore, but they owned the Royal Typewriter manufacturing and Royal Typewriter sales and service in the United States. The Royal Typewriter at the time was a manual typewriter, and it was in almost every school, just about every. The other ones available were Remington and Underwood, and those three comprised 90. There was one called Olympia, but the three major ones were Royal Typewriter Company, and these were manuals, and Underwood and Remington typewriters. Now, I know that this. You probably wonder why in the world is this guy going into all this when what he wants to talk about is customer division. Well, if you understand some of these things that I'm talking about in my career, then you'll come to the place, and I'll try to get with it. I'm a little what a lot of people say is that I get started and I get to go talking, and I just veer off into all kinds of things, and people think that that's not necessary, but that's because they don't understand communication. When you're communicating concepts and ideas with people, you can't just throw out one idea, because when you do that, you are subject to be led by a sheep. Now, a lot of business today, that's all they do is they throw one idea at you and they hammer you with that idea to the point where you become a sheep. You become a customer sheep. Because that's all that they've told you about whatever it is they want you to know. Because they focused on that, and they hammer you and hammer you and hammer you with that one concept. But in order for people to be well informed about a concept, which is not just one idea, a concept is made up of elements that interact with each other in order to provide you with a wider picture, a more deep picture of information, a more extensive understanding of the concept. Therefore, you then are not a sheep at that point. You are what we call a well-informed, intentional consumer. And we have very few of those today. And it's by design. This is what you have to understand about business. Now, there's nothing wrong with business operating that way. It's totally legal, except for the fact that they continually use words like free and new and improved and special offerings, new packaging, all different kinds of iterations of the original product in order to keep you buying it or to increase the number of times you buy that product. That's the idea. And when that is occurring, what is happening there, companies that have the budgets, the advertising budgets, in order to pull that off on you and keep you in the sheep mode and not in the mode of a fully informed customer with a deep understanding of what it is that your actual needs are as a customer, right? And so the reason I'm going into the various elements of my experience is to let you understand that I'm qualified to advise you about your economic situation right now, today. I'm qualified. If you listen to what I'm saying carefully, and when I'm finished, you even take notes, it's a good idea. Because when you take notes, it reinforces the ideas I'm talking about to you that are coming in through the ear gate. And it reinforces those ideas that come through your ear gate. And by the fact that you're writing those concepts down, that information down that's coming through your ear gate into your thinking system, people call a brain. It's an organ that is electrically operating with electrical synapses provided by the nutrition that has been subatomically broken down, the macro elements you shove in your eat hole. When you eat, go through a digestion system with aid from the heart-lung system that provides oxygen as the nutrients are broken down by various organic acids that are contained inside of your stomach and intestines and so forth, where all those macro elements are broken down into subatomic particles that you have to have a microscope to look at. And then once those things, it's absorbed through the stomach lining and so forth, and inserted into the bloodstream that is functioning because of the heart-lung function of our biological human bodies. So that every cell of the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of millions, billions of cells, structures that make up and comprise the human biological body. So what is happening there is a prelude to the fact that when that is occurring, all of that energy that is being developed, that is the result of the activity that I've just explained to you, then heads to the organ we call the brain, and it is enforced there by the spark of life, which is the reading that we get when we check to see if our brain is functioning normally. The heart that everybody talks about when they go, they pound their chest, all that's doing is pumping plasma around. That's all it's doing. There's no thinking here in the heart. So when they talk about the heartfelt blah, 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 that is a nonsensical conversation because it has nothing to do with what's going on up here and what's coming out of the mouth. In order to think, you have to have a vocabulary. You ever think about that? In other words, a baby that just has been around weeks has no vocabulary. They haven't heard any language. Now they've been around a while and they start to grow and they start hearing language, you see. And they start the one thing about the brain, what we have as a brain, It records everything that is spoken to it, everything, and the emotions that it chooses to grasp because of the information that's being inserted, due to the fact that that is the way we learn. So that as a baby, when your mother says, it keeps telling you your little sweet things and she loves you and that, and blah, 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 that's what you learn to understand as being your parents. They're talking to you in languages, using words that you come to understand as you grow, that allow you to identify who is your mother and father. But one thing about a baby, the first word generally they learn to say is no. And check that out. I mean, it's a no. And that is a result of a reason. There's a reason for that. And I won't go into all that because that's a 2-day discussion. So what you are learning from me as I'm speaking here in an advisory position and functioning as a advocate for you, as a marketing consultant for you and for business, because you need to be aware of the wide, deep concepts that associate with why companies are existing and why you interact with them. And if you understand that, then you can begin to crack open how you have been characterized and are managed by the big companies, and in many cases, the higher, the more successful, larger companies in the cities you live. Okay, if you understand what is happening to you by the way that they operate and manage you, and especially now with the advent of the internet, now and computers. Now, I started talking about it qualified for you for me to talk to you about the use of computers and making you a sheep due to the fact that this search engine optimization that gives you when you search for an item, that gives you 2 or 3 the ones right there that you don't really go down and look at the 10th one, although it's there. And then when I get to the bottom, after it shows so many, because there will only be so many on a page, right? Then you'll see more down at the bottom, more. And those, when you start getting into the more pages, those are the ones that don't spend any money with them. That's why they're at the tail end of the donkey. If you don't spend money with us, you are a more. You're not a top listed search engine return. Is that you have to spend money in order to get. Now, here's a curious thing about that, which most people never think about. All that money that they spend, those companies, to be that first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, of the top 10 on the first page, all that money. And by the way, that amounts to billions of dollars every single year. Now, all that money, guess who pays for that? Do you think the companies that buy that search engine optimization service pay for it? Well, in a sense, they do, sure, because they have an expense that the company that provides them with that position in the search engine results. They have to pay the bill because the company that provides them that service and position. And remember, I said it all depends on how much money you spend. The more money you spend, the higher you come up the ladder, and they show the customers what they say is the one that you should. The customer then, the business then says that one is the one that you should be doing business with. It isn't necessarily true, But that's what they tell you, and you kind of more or less believe that because, after all, they're the first one of all the businesses in that category that show up, right? So it's natural for you to think that way because you're a sheep. See, sheep are a group of animals that are distinct in terms, they're unique in terms of their well-being. I don't know whether you know this or not, but sheep will starve to death if a shepherd doesn't have some leadership over them and leads them to places they can gnaw on the forage. Bring them to places after they've eaten it all down. They would just sit there and keep trying to eat something that's not there. That's the way sheep think. They don't think in terms of how to get to the food they need. They don't have that built in a animal biological instinct. That's why they got to have a shepherd. Once the shepherd realizes that the flock has eaten down an area of pasture or a lush growing area of forage, then he will use his staff, and he will encourage them. And many times a sheepdog helps him. They developed the a sheepdog that runs around and kind of guides them along and gets them going in a direction, and they get a leader sheep out there, and the shepherd keeps them going to new pastures. Okay. And when it comes to the fact that the shepherd knows they need to have water, then what he does is, and the sheepdog helps him take them to the place where the water is. But if they didn't have that kind of leadership, they would either die because they would cease to exist, they would expire because they can't find the water on them by themselves. They cannot find food by themselves. So that's why they need a shepherd. And the shepherd, once in a while, the sheep, the more obstinate ones, they get off on their own and they get tied up over in a thicket. And the shepherd has a hook on the end of his staff, and that's what that hook's for. He can go over there and get that sheep out of that thicket where he's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be over with the herd, see? So now you know a little bit about how you are as a customer. You see, you're being led. You don't know today. You don't have a clue today about how to function inside of your economy. You think you do. You think you do. But that's only because the businesses only give you a certain information. Now, you think you can do your own research and so on and so forth. But that's a folly. That is a figment, which means it's a very minuscule idea that is consumed with ineffectuality. In other words, it doesn't exist. Now, you think you can go out here and find the best deal for yourself. I understand how you feel. Believe me, I do. I sold to people all my life, and I'm still selling. And you're sitting there saying, well, I know how to find what I want. Well, no, that's just because you think that you know how, when in the truth of the matter is, if that were the case, then we would not have the big only category of companies. The competition would take care of that. See, if you were really able to get on to the best deal for yourself, the concept of competition in the free enterprise system would take care of you. But you see, you are so controlled in terms of what information is available to you that you think is disclosure, that you think is absolute, that you think is all the information that's available. And then your experience and your intelligence and your common sense tells you which is the best way for you to go. See, this is always the case with human beings. They always think they know better. And when I say they, I mean you personally. You always think you know better, if you think at all. There's a many people that simply don't think about it. They just stumble into a store and buy snacks or whatever tastes good to them. I mean, and look, this sounds like I'm being critical of you, and far be it. I'm just talking to you about reality. That's all. Just reality. Face the fact that the live big companies today control your life. And see, it's not supposed to be, and more power to them if they can do it and you let them do it to you. I say, get them, sucker. I mean, get them high business, big business, and sucker you. I mean, if they can get away with it and without breaking laws, and I don't think they do get away with it without breaking laws, but the government doesn't do anything about the fact that they do break laws. So it looks like they're not breaking any laws. Otherwise, how could they get away with what they do? You see what I'm saying? Now, we hear some rumblings now. There's some people that say, well, we're going to look into these big businesses. Well, maybe we'll see how that works out. See, I mean, we're still waiting for the report about some investigator that was going to investigate everything around how our president was led down the primrose path by professional people within our agencies of our Justice Department that thought they knew better than the Constitution. And we're still waiting for that report. And I don't know. I don't think we'll ever see that report. Do you? I don't think we will. And we're sitting around here, and now we're saying to ourselves, most of us don't even remember that there is supposed to be a report about all that. And nobody has. There's a few people, maybe one or two, have lost their job over the deal, and but most of them were just reassigned in the same Justice Department that they worked. That were found to have been wrong and violating policies of the Justice Department and rules and regulations. They're just reassigned. Still kept their longevity and their benefits and all that and their salary. No justice there at all. But this is just one of those things that we see, and we're sitting here, and the people that have an inkling that there's these rumblings that we're going to see this, or there's somebody going to do something about this, but that's all it's ever going to be, is a rumble. It's not going to be a reality. It's going to be just a rumble. That's all it's going to be. It's never going to happen. It never has happened. It never will happen. And that's because most people vote because they like the way the candidate looks, not based on what he says or what the party does that they voted into office. And that's why we have chaos instead of fair and equal application of our Constitution in our great United States of America. But never fear, no matter how powerful these people are, and they are powerful, believe me, no matter how powerful they are, they themselves are ignorant of what they're doing, which is leading themselves to nowhere, because those people expire the same as you and me. And so at some point, everything they think they've done is going to go into the ash heap. It goes to nothing. But they never, ever let themselves be aware of that or concern themselves with that unless they're smart enough to think about in terms of, well, who's going to carry on behind me and blah, blah, blah. And those people are going to end up in the ash heap. So what I'm trying to explain to you here is this. The only way to find yourself through this maze that you live in called your life, the only way to find the happiness that you deserve as a human being, every human being deserves to be happy. That is to say, deserves to have things in their life that are not heavily burdensome, because that's why we are given our thinking capacities. But you have to have a vocabulary. You have to have a memory center of that vocabulary development. It has to be a continual, lifelong search for information that you add to your memory center, which develops your vocabulary. The more words that you understand and know what they mean, the more you and can call from your memory center into your speaking language and communication skills, the better you're able to communicate your thinking totality, which is made up not only of the memory center and the vocabulary, but it is the launching pad, which is your use of free will, that you can choose to think and say and learn what you want. You can choose, and therefore you are responsible. You get that? Everybody chooses what they are. Now, I know you're going to argue with me on that one. Believe me, there's all kinds of people and groups of people that say, well, they are what they are because of something else other than what their choice of thought was. And I will go so far as to agree that it's difficult in certain situations for people and circumstances, successions, relations, conditions that end up being a reality that occur throughout someone's growth of their life as a human being and as operating and living in a place and going to schools and so forth. I will go so far as to say that certain people have less opportunities than other people do. I will go that far. But the opportunities that are less are only less because you allow them to be less. We have all kinds of examples, and we could spend, and there are books have written about this, books and more books. Movies are written, developed about this, the documentaries about great people in categories that came from places in our United States cities and so forth that are places where the opportunities are limited, but that didn't stop them. They were either encouraged and guided or they were self-motivated. And there's a way to self-motivate yourself, by the way, too. It's do it now. Don't just think about it, but get up out of that chair and go do it. See, whatever it is, do it now and continue to do it now. And that self-motivation is be active about doing something about your particular situation. Whether it's go out and get a job, or whether it's go out and learn something about something, or teach yourself about something, or learn from other people about something, which is what I'm attempting to do, is help you. And this is all leading to helping you earn more income. Okay, that's why I'm here. It's the only reason I'm here. I'm 80 years old. I don't need money. I don't ask for investments by people, customers. I help people become more viable in terms of selecting real opportunities, truthful opportunities about what they see and hear about what their needs are in the economic sense. Okay. Now, Customer Division USA. I'm going to get on to stopping this video because I don't think they like it when it goes real long. When I say they, you know who I'm talking about. Customer division, you see, has occurred over the last 70 years. And basically, the census the agency will verify what I'm going to tell you right now, and then I'm going to shut this down. And then I'll make another one. You can come back and pick up on me. And this will be published on a website, this video, and it'll be published on my social media Facebook page and under customer division page, and that I'll develop. And then you can go there and watch it again. Okay. Or to get more information, I'll post there continually for you. Customer division. All right. The U.S. Census keeps track of every person in the United States, generally speaking. There's probably some that slip through the, cracks. But generally speaking, they keep track of everybody in the United States. And they categorize people, and that data is available by zip codes. So you can go to the search engines and you can put in a zip code and you can hit the enter, and it'll return to you the data, all the information about that zip code, what happens in that zip code that the Census Department has verified for you. So within reason, you can take that to the bank. Now, I don't mean you trust your life with that information, but generally speaking, if you go out and check a lot of that information, it's going to be pretty accurate. And then what I want you to really focus on is take your zip code wherever you live and get that into the search engine and click on it and get that data for that zip code. And then go down, scroll down, and look for the economic data about the people who live in that zip code. And they will sit there and tell you that those people that live in that zip code are considered to be of an income level of a certain category. And we can generally say there are two kinds of the zip codes in the United States. There's about 240,000 of them. We can generally say that if you searched every one of them, you would come to the realization that I know is true, that about half of the people that live in the United States of America are lower income zip code people. And the other half live in what we call the higher income zip codes. Now, if you want another way to verify that and confirm that for yourself, go to the zip codes and get about 10 or 15 or 20 of those in your city and find out which ones are and you already know if you live in a city where the lower income zip, you might be living in one. But then go there in your automobile and drive around in those zip codes on the commercially zoned streets of that zip code, those zip codes, and see how many franchise businesses you see there. You know how many? That many. That's a zero, by the way. See, there aren't any. Why aren't there? Well, because the franchise people are not stupid. They're not going to build hundreds of thousands of dollars in branded business location buildings and pay for real estate to build those buildings on in areas where the customers can't typically afford to buy often enough from them to make a profit on that real estate building and so forth, and to sell franchises around that brand. On the other side of that coin, if you go out into the higher income zip codes and go down a commercially active street in those higher income zip codes, you will see brand building franchise after brand building franchise. And as you drive into different zip codes, you'll continue to see those, but every one of them are operated by a different franchisee or one that has invested in that business franchise brand address category and then went down and after so many population were given to him for that store. He went down far enough and he paid through the nose for another one, so that he's got two now with two sets of population that supposedly are going to support that store. But that's just one franchise. And see, those are dotted throughout all of the higher income zip codes in cities. And there are none of those, and I say none, probably somebody will go out and find one or two. All right. But generally speaking, when I say none, I'm talking about just as well be none, because if you're going to do a franchise in a lower income zip code, you're going to have to go out and hunt one up, because there ain't very many of them. All right. But on the other hand, if you live out in the higher income zip codes and you happen to be a higher income person, you can get out of your house and drive a few blocks down the street, and you got all of them available that you can spend money on. I mean, you see, that's the reality of the economic condition in the United States today, and what Customer Division USA is all about. It teaches you that businesses over the last 70 years have created a set of circumstances and business operations. I call it the business of businesses. Okay, I have a .com. It says the business of businesses.com, and then it is to treat you as a profit target, not as a customer. That's way down the list. I know they tell you how much they love you and all so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. I know all that. And if you believe everything they tell you, well, then it's on you, isn't it? Because if all their interest, and the reason they've got as big as they've got, and the reason why there's so few of them, is because they treat you as a profit center. Each customer has a profit center. And they've been doing that for decades. Now, here, you have to, again, come back with me to the 40s and the 50s, when the boys came home after 1945 World War II. The boys came home, the young men that defeated our enemies over in different nations of the world and at home. Those boys came home, lots of them got married, and lots of them had babies, and lots of them grew families and bought homes and bought new cars, and our economy surged. But if you go back and look at how business functioned in those days, that 20-year period, while all of this economic activity was occurring, there was no franchises in the sense of general distribution of franchises. I know there's one or two that started back and way, way, way back. Okay, Soft Serve comes to mind. Soft Serve brand. That's soft serve. What is not ice cream? It's soft serve. It's not ice cream. It's soft serve. It's fortified milk, frozen. But they've made they're one of the largest and I know this because I bought 10 of the franchises of that in 1969 in Omaha, Nebraska. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to franchising. And I know all the history of franchising. And I'm not going to go into all that, but I'm only going to tell you that back in those 20 years when all the boys came home from the World War II, and got married, many of them, most of them, and had children and raised families and bought homes and bought new cars and bought this and that and the other thing. And our economy surged. Customers were the number one priority of a business in those days. In other words, the business people realized that without the customer as the focus, the center of the purpose of the business, without that being a part of the equation, there would be no business. See, there wouldn't be any. You see, customer is king, and but if the customer allows himself to be made the janitor and never gets into the light of disclosure and understanding of how companies operate, then they become sheep and they become a tool for companies to make profit on a targeted basis, one by one by one by one. And it's real easy for them because all of us live in a zip code. The post office department helped them. They it's real easy because they know right where you're at, boy. And now the computer can tell you, because you look for something, where you ought to spend your money. They're basically, that's what's happening to you when you search. They're telling you where you ought to spend your money without regard to anything which you don't know in the first place. That's why you were searching. You understand that? So now, there is nothing that can be done about that unless you're my age and you have all the experience that I have. There's a lot of people out here that are making all kinds of false statements about that they have the answer for you and this and that and the other thing. And then when you get down to the end, and we'll charge you so much for this information. You see, my information, there's no charge. I didn't say free. I said no charge. If you think there's something free in the economic system, then you are a sheep, because there is no such a thing as free in business. No matter what the business says, there is no such thing as free. A business identifies every cost, which is part of what they say is free. It's a cost. They have cost accountants that are professional, that identify every cost that business has and categorize it and put it into the prices they charge you, so that they have no cost. You pay the cost, and there's a profit in that operation for them, and that's why you are targeted as a profit center. What I just explained, you probably didn't get it. I'll tell you what, this is at my Facebook page. I told you my name is Wilbert T. Sass. You go to my Facebook page and you go over to my pages, you'll find several pages there, very interesting pages there. I get people on a daily basis that notice me about their having visited those pages. I'm going to put up a Customer Division USA page, and I will continue to post information there as long as they let me. Now, they're more than likely going to shut me off because they don't want you to know the information that I'm giving you. In fact, this platform I'm using doesn't want you to know that you pay for all advertising in the prices you pay. So when a business buys advertising today, all that they are doing is creating competition for themselves, but they don't care about that, because advertising used to be, the purpose of it was to get new customers. That's not what advertising is today. What advertising is today is to not for advertising, because they don't care. They already got customers. They've been in business so long, they got so big, they already got customers, but they got competition that's big just like they are. And so each one of them have what we know as and call a mark. And when I say we, informed people like myself with experience, a business owner, having been many decades of having learned all these things. And one of the few that's operating today in the United States at my age with my kind of experience. There's only a handful of us, maybe just me. I really don't know and don't care. I know what I have. I know what I've done. And therefore, I know what I can communicate to you. Whether you accept it or not, that's your business. Had nothing to do. I'm just telling you what's good for the goose is also not good for the gander. You have to decide whether you're a goose or a gander. You follow that? I don't know. But what we have is, as long as it lasts, as long as they, or if they don't have some clever way to diffuse anybody from seeing what I post, which I think is a lot of what goes on. You have to understand the social medias are selling their numbers. The number of people, names that are on that social media, they take that information to business and say, look, here's a group of thousands of people, and we'll make sure they see your ads. We'll put your ads in front of them. But you have to remember that only companies that pay them money get that kind of benefit. Everybody else just gets thrown into the heap that is registered, that is signs up for an account. And whether or not they see anything of any value to them other than somebody making a recipe or somebody doing something on a street in front of the house, they've made a video of it and they put it up there. And a lot of people are looking for those things. And the crazy things that are posted out there that people are after me to the suggested friends I'm supposed to have so I confirm them and so forth, because I'm trying to be generous with the knowledge that I have. But what they don't understand is they think I'm going to talk to them on personal levels, and I'm not. I mean, I simply am not going to do that, because I don't think personal information should be made public on an internet, public social network. I just don't think that makes any sense at all. Your privacy is your privacy. And you have to be careful about what you tell people, because I guarantee you, if you say things about your personal life to people, that information is going to get passed around to a whole bunch of other people, and then that it's going to be diffused out pretty soon. Everybody in the world is going to know your business and know your personal life. So you have to be very careful. Look, you have privacy for a reason. No one can read your mind, or when I say mind, your thinking processes. Nobody can read your thinking processes unless you speak them, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason that nobody can read your mind. And that reason is to protect you from the disclosure of information that can be damaging to you, because people can repeat it and people form judgments about you based on what you talk about to them, if it's personal. Other people here, it's called gossiping. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's called gossiping. And it is one of the worst things that people can do in terms of degenerating their own thinking self as a person, is to talk about other people to other people when the people you're talking about are not there to defend themselves if necessary. That's one of the worst things people can do, is repeat personal information they've heard from the party and then repeat it to somebody else without that person they heard it from being present to defend themselves. It's called gossiping, and it's universal today. People just don't give a hoot whether they violate your privacy or not. That's even your best friends, even your own family will do that to you. So be careful about what you disclose about yourself, your own personal self that you think, that you're able to think about. That's how we progress as people. We learn from our mistakes and we keep them private, and we develop and watch ourselves in how we think and what we choose to think and say after that, to the point where we break habits that are harmful to ourselves through our privacy network that we only know about. Now, that is information that's very valuable to you. I hope you grasp it. So, uh, Customer Division USA page within my Wilbert T. Sass page. And by all means, if you have questions or you want to criticize me or comment about me, fire away. All right. Facebook gives you that opportunity. So I'm going to get out of here now, and I'll see you around on the next uh, uh, presentation of information that I have. Just so you know, the whole purpose of this, I'm trying to put you in a position to use what I know to help you earn more income, and I don't charge you a thing for it. And I even train you how to do it. And I even provide the businesses to you that will help you do that. Now, I do charge them, but my business model is whatever I charge them is legal and it's certified in the sense that I have a business plan that takes that money that I charge them and I categorically provide them with exclusive territories in zip code cities because that's where the customers live. So they have a categorical exclusive in their zip code where their business is located with branded developmental customer programs that only their business has in that zip code. I take the money I charge for that, which is $499 per year, and I put in writing that I return all that money back to the group in that city that bought that advertising marketing program. I turn all of it back to them. And in order to prove to them that I spend the money efficiently and effectively, I have a CPA run an audit on all the income from the members in that city, the business members who have exclusives by categories, in zip codes. I run all the income from those members in that city by a CPA audit, and I have I return all that money, and I have a budget on each category of four categories of expense to let the money that is the total income from the membership fall within one of those categories of expense, and I take half of the money and spend it on advertising and marketing. It's I have a .com that says membership investment or boomerang membership investment.com. That's what it is. In other words, they make the investment, they throw the boomerang investment, and it comes back to them as a group. It comes back to them. So you see, when you sum it all up, as I'm an advocate, a marketing advocate, a customer advocate to help people. And how do I help you earn more money? Well, I'm going to save you between 30 to 50% on the money you spend of your disposable income categorically, with if you are smart enough to choose the certain businesses that have my business plan, because they're going to charge you, instead of paying $15 for a pizza that you like that's filled up with all kinds of stuff that you don't really know that you're eating, unless it happens to be a really obnoxious tasting topping that you particularly like. I know some people like anchovies, and you talk about, I don't know why they put that on a pizza, but they do. 62% of the people buy pepperoni pizzas. I mean, it's just that simple. And the reason is it's most economical to make those pizzas and sell them. But when the franchises get done, they add on 30 to 50% or even more. So that's why you're paying about, if you buy a larger size pepperoni pizza, you're paying, let's say, around $15. With my organization of pizzas, categorical pizza exclusive pizza operators in zip codes, you'll pay around $8, and you'll pay around $8 all the time. Now, you see, the franchises can't do that. The franchise pizza places, they can't do that. Because if they only charge $8, then they can't pay the franchise company, in which case the franchise company will sue them. in which case the lease they sign is a lifelong lease in terms of the life of the building, and whether they're operating the business or not, they're still responsible for the rent that they signed, the lease they signed, and that's why you have to have a certain net worth in order to get the franchise in the first place, in addition to paying the advertising percentage of every dollar that comes through the door to the franchise company that you don't get and the customer and the franchisee doesn't get, but it goes to the franchise company, and but it's in the menu price that you pay. Are you catching all this? See, this is important for you because the average person spends so much money every year on disposable income, and more people are spending that disposable on food, fast food, because both the man and the wife work, and when they come home at night, they don't want to sit in the kitchen and make food. That's why prepared foods in the grocery store sell so great. But people don't want to go through the process even of opening the carton and taking the tinfoil thing and putting it in the oven and waiting 30 minutes in order to eat. They want to pick up the telephone or get on the computer and have the stuff show up maybe an hour later. Whereas I've got a delivery system that happens. See, big companies always let themselves open to competition. They always do that. They always have, because their focus is wrong. Remember, I said their focus is on profit. Well, when you're in business and that's the only thing you ever think about, the competition, if there is some going to come along and eat your lunch, because a business that's focusing that way cannot stand competition. They crumble. So my delivery system, which is Drone brand, that I've owned for almost 20 years, dronebrand.com, drone brand. You'll see these things when you go to my Facebook page. You'll see these things on the pages. Drone Association USA, Drone Projects USA, Drone Brand USA, Drone Logo USA, Seven Cities Company, that's my company. You'll see all these pages, and then you'll also see now, as I get it on there, Customer Division USA, because this is critical information for you to understand all the other things that I do. You have to understand what the solution is that I have for Customer Division USA. It's very, very simple. For example, my delivery program is based on the fact that it's designed to get delivery to you within 18 minutes of you placing the order. That's right. I said 18 minutes. It's different than what the big businesses have to set up a way for them to make money off of you. Whereas all I'm doing is setting up a system that allows you to be the recipient of all the benefits of the capabilities of business and still leave enough money for them to make a profit if they're exclusive, because they're going to get customers easy without the cost that the other companies are going to have to spend. I'm talking about independents in cities as well as franchisees, because the independents that aren't members of my system, they think that the franchises are doing it right, and so they mimic them. They charge the same kind of prices that because they think the prices that the big outfits are doing are the best that there are out there for customers. See, they're sheep too, as well. You understand? So that's why they don't grow either. If they've been in business longer than 5 years, it's because of a location that their business is located, and the longest time that they've been in business, and the kind of management experience and education they have, and the smarts that they have acquired because of their experience. Otherwise, they'd be out of business. And it's one of the reasons why so many businesses failed immediately when the COVID-19 came along. They were being managed and run so inefficiently, so ineffectively, even though they were big businesses according to what they said with their advertising. when they were put into a position where they had to compete effectively and efficiently, they just couldn't do it. They just had to close their doors. Go on the internet and check it. I mean, you'll see lists and lists and lists of people that closed up, and they'll those lists will all tell you it's because of the COVID. Well, in the first instance, you'd have to say that it was because of the COVID, but the real reason was because of their inefficient and ineffective way that their business model had been functioning, which means that you were a sheep if you were doing business with them because they were treating you as a profit center. All right. Uh, Check out that page over there and learn something. Believe me, you need it.